turning to travel, and really this is the reason why we wanted to highlight travel this particular week, we're seeing a real discrepancy between high-end travelers and low-end travelers in terms of their position to spend. Is there a change in that? Four Seasons CEO Alejandro Reynal saying his company has seen its strongest year ever, writing this: short-term uncertainty given the current geopolitical and macroeconomic pressures are impacting traveler sentiment, but the luxury segment is more resilient. Alejandro joins us now. Alejandro, thank you so much for being with us. Pleasure to have you here in studio. I want to start there. Is it true that you're not seeing any slowdown whatsoever in the luxury element?
Good morning. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I love the fact that we're talking about luxury hospitality. Yes, I mean, we had a really strong first half of the year compared to last year, much better. When I look into the booking trends for the second half of the year, even going on into 2025, they look very strong as well. You know, I think there's two things that are happening there. First and foremost is that the luxury guest or the luxury consumer continues to be very resilient. They continue to spend, you know, that desire for experiences, to explore, continues to be there. But also I would say that from a Four Seasons angle and from a Four Seasons point of view, we do offer a very clear value proposition to our guests. I mean, we do have very proud to say that we have the very best hotels in the best locations, and we provide the best service to our guests. And when you have that as the brand proposition, and that's what we do at Four Seasons, there's a demand for that. And by the way, this is not new of this year. We've been operating now for 60 years, and that has been the constant all throughout the period.
So what has changed? And I'm wondering, not just from the consumer who's able to spend, but also from the employees and who you're able to recruit. For a long time, there was this dearth of people willing to work in hospitality in the direct aftermath of the pandemic. Do you see it as being much easier now to hire people and sort of easier to also retain them without massive price increases, wage increases?
Yes. I mean, obviously for us, a key component of what we do is through our people. I mean, we are a service company, and the most important asset is the people that we have with us. So we place a lot of emphasis in making sure that we are the employer of choice in every single market that we operate. We do spend a lot of time training people, developing them. For us, we do measure employee engagement twice per year. We are at the 2% across all industries in terms of employee engagement. So it's a topic that we spend a lot of time because we do believe that we need to have the best and most engaged employees with us. We haven't had, I mean, obviously, right after the pandemic, there was a little bit of pressure from a labor point of view. We don't see that anymore. But again, it's because of the efforts that we place in making sure that we are the employer of choice in the markets in where we operate.
I want to know more about your customer, but specifically like the ultra luxury. Mm-hmm. And there I know you have a private jet service, something like $115,000 for a charter a day. Yeah. How much demand is there for that?
Yes, you know, it's interesting, and just to give you the context of this is, obviously Four Seasons started as a hotel and a resorts company, and we are now the leading luxury hospitality company. And that's where our guests experience the brand. What we found over time is that because our second business is the residential, branded residential, so guests, they stay with us, they experience the brand, and then they are willing to buy a residence with us. So that's sort of the journey that they start experiencing with Four Seasons. And then the third piece is what you just said, is the journeys, experience-based travel that we promote as a third line of business. So if you think about the whole analogy, guests, they stay with us, they live with us, and they travel with us. They develop such a comfort with the brand and with the brand promise and the brand proposition that they're willing to spend that amount of money in traveling for 20 days through 10 Four Seasons in Africa or in Europe and so forth. So for us, it's been more around creating this luxury ecosystem for Four Seasons that our guests are eager to travel. By the way, we have all the itineraries for this year sold out. for the rest of the year. So it's a very successful product, but again, it taps into that desire to experience, to explore that we find in our guests.
So you're saying we're too late for it then?
Yeah, 2025, we're opening
Good to keep in mind. I mean, just talking about the different mix of your businesses, you're not the only one doing it in this space, and it obviously is an exclusive space of those who can offer this. But you think of, the Amman Resorts also trying to give also experiences to. What does competition look like right now?
Mm-hmm. Well, competition, because of the attractiveness of the luxury space, there's a lot of competitors coming in. I think we have, as a Four Seasons, the advantage of the brand. I mean, we are the most, we continuously measure brand preference, brand awareness in terms of our brand, and we continue to be the number one luxury hospitality brand. And I think that carries a lot of weight. But it's because at the end of the day, we're able to deliver that value proposition to our guests. I mean, it's interesting because I do interact with a lot of our guests, and when I ask them what do they like about the Four Seasons, the first thing they tell me is that I know what to expect. And I've been able, as a guest, to explore remote destinations. So for example, I've been able to go to Bora Bora, but because there's a Four Seasons, I feel comfortable because I know what to expect. And to have that level of consistency and that brand power is very, very unique. So I think we're uniquely and very well positioned.
Where do you see the demand right now in terms of the hot spots, top 5 people are traveling to?
Yeah. It's interesting because, and I'm going to say something which is a little bit contrarian. When I look into the history of Four Seasons over the last years, travel patterns haven't changed much. For example, 55% of our revenues come from the Americas, the majority being the US. More than 50% of our guests, they are from the US. And where do they travel? To the US. Right now, during the summertime, they travel to our South Florida collection, they go to Hawaii. Beyond the US, they go to Mexico and then Europe. The fact is that, and this has happened for many, many years, Americans are going to go to Europe probably once a year, every summer. I mean, and we're seeing that again this summer, but it happened prior year. So, but again, America is representing 55% of revenues. For us, EMEA, Europe and the Middle East represents 25% of the revenues. And there the dynamics are similar. Europeans, they mostly stay within Europe. They venture into the Middle East or Africa. And then we have APAC, which is 20% of our business. 3% is only China, and that's mainly regional travel.
Do you still see the Chinese consumer spending as much in luxury hotels the same way the US consumer is?
No, they have not come back. I mean, when I look into what was the spend prior to the pandemic, it's less. It's interesting because they are spending less in China, so we still don't have the same rates that we used to have prior to the pandemic in China, but they are starting to spend more internationally, but internationally within the region, meaning Japan for the most part. Because of visa issues and many other things, they still have not come back to Europe or the US, which is where we saw them prior to the pandemic.
There's a real question here about how much, and Torsten Slok of Apollo called us out for us this morning. He said, all you people in media, and I'm paraphrasing, just keep using everyone as an anecdote to try to paint a macro picture. Your company has been around for 60 years. How independent of the macro cycle is it, right? I mean, because are we talking about something that is a complete microcosm unto itself of people who have disposable wealth and are going to travel no matter what, versus a company that does have some sort of sensitivity to what's going on in the underlying consumer sentiment?
Yeah. I mean, I would be lying if I would say that we are immune to any macroeconomic geopolitical impacts, because we are. I mean, at the end of the day, that uncertainty impacts traveler sentiment and people don't travel because of that. But obviously we've been operating for 60 years and we've gone through these cycles and they go away. And at the end of the day, what we're seeing is year over year that the market continues to grow. I mean, travel and tourism has been growing for many years now. That desire to experience, to explore continues to be there. I think it's really interesting when you look into the luxury consumer that our composition of guests, about 20% are boomers, 45% are Gen X, 35% already are millennials. So that transfer of wealth is starting to happen, but we're not losing the boomers. So it means that the market is expanding. So always year on year, there's going to be more demand, more growth. And at the end of the day as well, we as a hotel and resort company need to be at the forefront in terms of creating amazing experiences so we can satisfy the demand. So I don't think at the end of the day that the demand just comes by itself. We need to have like we do, a very special product, a very special service proposition to our guests. So at the end of the day, they are eager to come to a Four Seasons.
So you're doing great with the baby class. I hear that you're really, crushing it, particularly south of the U.S. Paid actor?
No, it wasn't. But that's one, it's a tremendous learning experience because sometimes you spend so much money on marketing that doesn't provide any outcomes. But then these special, authentic moments are the ones that the consumers value the most. This was a complete viral moment, but it was completely authentic. We had nothing to do with it. In the end, we had more than 300 million views through various digital platforms on the Four Seasons Baby. Obviously, we got a spike on on searches on Four Seasons Orlando. So it was very good, but again, it was very authentic, which ultimately is what people like.
I love it. I wonder how many board meetings were about the Four Seasons Baby. Alejandro Reynal, Four Seasons CEO, thank you so much for being with us.